everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 42 in the podcast series. Welcome! It's a Saturday morning here in Urbana, Illinois, and I have wet hair. My son is off playing soccer practice for like an hour, and it's just one of those beautiful mornings, and I thought, you know what, wet hair and all, I'm gonna come in here and do a little podcasting. I have a lot to tell you guys about. I'm pretty excited. I've got the Sheep and Wool Festival to talk about. I can finally reveal one of the secret sample test knits I was doing. Let's see, I've got the giveaway for Purl Ply, and that scarf is done. So much to talk about, so I can't wait to get started. But of course, I want to welcome you first. It's nice to be here with you on this Saturday morning, and let's see what else. You can find me, if you're looking for me, just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash. On Ravelry, we have a group. Come on over and join in. There's lots of good chatter going on over there, people introducing themselves. You can find me on YouTube, obviously, on Instagram, and the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com. So, for those of you who are new, there might be some new folks out there, welcome. This is a podcast about knitting and spinning, but mostly it's about garment modification and DIY. So, if you're into those things, you're in the right place, and it's nice to have you here. For those of you who are coming back, it's wonderful to see you again. I usually podcast every couple weeks, so I'm on schedule, even though the semester has started and things are crazy, and I'm trying to write a talk to go to Germany in a couple weeks. I'm pulling my hair out just a little bit. But I do have a few pages of the talk written, so I'm calming down just a little bit. If anyone is going to be in Cologne, or Köln, I'm told it's pronounced, in Germany, I will be there the beginning of October, end of September, beginning of October, so feel free to get in touch. I'd love to see you. I will be doing a tour of the yarn shops there, as always, before I give my talk. I always have a good time in Germany. I was there just last spring, I think, and visited a lot of yarn shops, and I'm hoping to do it again this October. So that's coming up. All right, let me jump right in and talk to you about this event. This was our apron. It's a really great little cobbler's apron for the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival. And Wisconsin Sheep and Wool is kind of one of the bigger festivals. It's not quite the Rhinebeck or the Marylands of the world, but it's for our parts, it's pretty great. There's a crook and whistle dog show where they're, rounding up the sheep. There's sheep competitions, carcass competitions, breed competitions, shearing, tons of vendors, classes, and then this year was the inaugural year for the sheep to shawl competition, which I told you guys about last time a little bit. And sheep to shawl, for anyone who's interested, who hasn't heard that term before, basically small groups. This time it was eight of us. Each group had to have 8 people in it. Get together, competition style, and you have depends on the competition, but we had about 4 hours to take a fleece from Kathy's farm, which was, it didn't have to be from Kathy's farm, but Kathy's our resident sheep raiser. And so we have fleece from her farm, and she had washed it ahead of time, raw fleece otherwise. We had to pick it, card it, spin it, ply it, and then we had Lisa weaving into a beautiful scarf. So let me tell you a little bit about, this is the singles that I have left over from the event. And it's a beautiful, the fleece we were using is a beautiful long wool Corriedale cross, and it's spun up just gorgeous. It has a little luster because it's a long wool, but it had a little bit more memory and elasticity because of the Corriedale mixed in. And I actually bought a little bit of fleece from Kathy that I showed you guys a while back. Same kind of cross, Leicester long wool and a Corriedale cross, this time in a dark fleece. I think you can see it there. And so this is just very roughly carded up. And so the white fleece was very similar to this. Carded up, spun it, and then Lisa wove it into a beautiful shawl. And I'll put in some photographs from the event at the end of this video. And I think I have a video of the kind of craziness of the event that I'll put in there as well, and a few still pictures. But I'll put that towards the end. So if somebody, if you're not interested in the sheep and wool thing, you can just don't worry about it. We won't talk about it too long. If you are interested, you can go to the end and check out the whole craziness. I do want to show you Lisa, our weaver. We have some pretty incredible weavers in the Champaign-Urbana Spinners and Weavers Guild. And Lisa is one of them, Lisa McLean, and she wove up samples in silk of the pattern that she was doing for the scarf. Now, she explained to me what this was. It's some kind of twill, a reversing twill, something like progressive reversing twill. I'm not a weaver. This is what you I'll do a lot of things on this podcast, but weaving is not one of them yet, I'm told. There's always time, right? But she made these beautiful pins for us to wear as part of the competition. There was part of the competition that you're supposed to have team spirit, so we all had our pinnies on, and we had these pins, and I think you can see the beautiful weaving. And so our shawl in the end had this at the beginning, then a bunch of kind of just plainer than this, plain work, and then this happened again at the end. It's kind of like a repeat. And like I said, I'll put in a picture or two here so you can see it. But I thought it was so cool that Lisa, her specialty is silk. And she was like, well, I needed to practice the pattern anyway. So I just, wove up 8 of these in silk for everyone to wear. Beautiful, beautiful pattern. For all the weavers out there, or any aspiring weavers, you'll know just how complicated this pattern was, or is. So there were 4 other teams. It was really great because I thought it was cool because everyone finished. I was kind of wondering if everyone was going to actually finish their shawls, and there was quite a variety of shawls among the 4 of us. There was one team there that Emily Hopkins of Hopkins Fiber Studio was on the team, and I talked to her and we got a nice photo together and everything. And Emily, if you're watching, I'd love to send me the photograph. I haven't seen it yet. And her team was pretty cool because it was really a virtual guild. Like, they had never actually met in person until the day of the competition. So they all showed up, and they were amazing. They worked together. They were having fun. They were laughing and joking the whole time. And they produced this beautiful kind of like pink and gray scarf that was it was just really gorgeous. And I was just astounded that they hadn't met before this, and they pulled it all off. So it was really cool. So for me, I'm not a big competition person. I'm not somebody who runs in the marathons of the world and whatnot. But I loved the team kind of effect of the whole thing, like getting together with people. There were so many spectators that came through, and they weren't supposed to talk to us because we were supposed to be working. And we had Irene was our education coordinator, and she kind of talked to everyone, all the spectators, about what was going on. But people would talk to us because I'm sitting there spinning, and when I spin, I love to talk. So it was just kind of like talk to people. There was little kids, there were older folks, there was just lots of people with lots of questions. And for me, that was the best part of the event. It's just like keeping alive this tradition of taking a raw animal fleece and spinning it and then weaving it into something that's like wearable, useful object. That was just so cool. There's something about participating in that process with a team of people who know what they're doing, and seeing other teams doing the same thing. That was just really, it's just invaluable, and I'm so glad I did it. It was one of those things you never know if you're going to be in a sheep to shawl competition, but I totally was, and I loved it. Competition-wise, whatever. I could tell you what place we got. I could tell you about the winning shawl. I could tell you all that stuff, but it's not me. That's not what I'm really totally interested in. I loved the fact that we got to sit there and demonstrate and produce something in a short period of time. That was just the coolest part. And I think I would go back and do it again just for that. And I loved my teammates. They were all really fun from the guild. We had Beth, who I've talked to you about before, Kathy, whose sheep the fleece came from, Sue was there, Esther's daughter, Beth, Irene was our education person, and Lisa was our weaver, and then there was me. So it was a great team and really a lot of fun, and I get to keep the apron, so I'll be wearing this around random times, I'm sure. I mean, who knows? It's great for spinning and whatnot. It's just fun to kind of have hanging up in the yarn room. So that is Wisconsin Sheep and Wool, and like I said, I'll put some video and some pictures toward the end for anybody else who wants to get a little more of the feel for the event. All right, but now I'm going to do a quick switch out because I have to tell you about my test knit that I can finally tell you about. So here we go. So after all that, I decided it's just going to be easier to hold it up and show you because it's in a dark, the sweater's in a dark color and it's just not going to show up well behind me on the mannequin. So this is a test knit sweater that I did for Albina McLaughlin of LB Handknits. She is doing a collaboration with Apple Oak Fiberworks and their Stockholm chunky yarn. And the book is called Facing North. And this is the book. It's up on her blog, and it's up on Apple Oak Fiberworks site as well, and it's available for pre-order. It's going to be both a kind of hard copy book and an electronic book. I think the hard copy, there's a limited run, so not very many of them available, but the e-copy is, they've got tons of them available. And so this sweater that you see on the front page of the on the cover of the book is one that I'm gonna test knit in the next week or so. And it's a cropped jacket, kind of fitted jacket, which is really kind of cool. But the other one that I am just now finished with is called Fisherman's Muse. And you might have seen Fisherman's Muse glimpses of it on Instagram because Albina was posting a little bit about it as she went, and it was in a beautiful green, kind of variegated colorway. And so I'm going to hold up my version of it. This is my Fisherman's Muse, and you can see it has this beautiful kind of higher lacy collar, kind of open and wide, and that laciness is repeated on the sleeves, on the cuffs, and on the bottom of the sweater. And there are like so many cool things about this sweater, but let me tell you a few of them. One is that it is reversible, and Albina talked about this in thinking about design for some of her other new sweaters that are coming out in the I think in the spring maybe. And she talked about just wanting to have sweaters that you could kind of pull on in the dark and it wouldn't matter if you got the right side or the wrong side because everything's the right side. So it's knit from the top down in such a way that you could put it on either way. There's no front, there's no back, there's no like extra short rows in the back to lift it up or anything like that. And then it is asymmetrical on the bottom. So this side over here, closer to my face, is higher by about 2 or 3 inches than this corner over here that's farther away from my face. So when you put it on, it has this kind of like cool tunic feel to it. So it's like, it'll sit right at your hip on the side that's shorter, and it'll kind of hang down just a little bit, like if you're wearing a pair of jeans or a skirt or something, it'll hang down just a little bit more on the other side. So it is super warm. It's knit in chunky yarn, and that's the, this one is knit in, let me just pull it up real quick so I can tell you the actual yarn, because this is not knit in the Apple Oaks Fiberworks. This is knit in Garden Studios Eskimo in the unicolor, and this is the dark blue. And that is partially because Albina's experimenting a little bit with alternate yarns, especially for folks who aren't in Ireland and able to get the Apple Oaks Fiberworks Stockholm yarn. So when I knit, when I test this, where'd it go? When I test knit this guy in a little while, I'm going to be test knitting it in a Kramer Yarns, which is a US based yarn. And that way if folks are in the US, like some of you are, and you want to be able to knit these chunky sweaters, you'll have some alternative options for getting the yarns that'll work for it. And the other cool thing about test knitting for Albina with this sweater is that I was able to help her with yardage. So if you're using a different yarn for a project, occasionally you'll come up with a slightly different yardage. So her guesstimate of the yardage it ended up being that I needed just a little bit more yarn in that Drops Eskimo yarn to be able to complete the sweater. So that kind of info is really helpful for test knitters to be sending back to the designers. I think this sweater is super warm. It's really fun because it really doesn't matter how you pull it on. You know, some hand knit sweaters or sweaters of any kind, you know, you put it on and you're like struggling. You're like, oh, is this the right? It's wrong. You have to flip it over, flip it around. This is just really easy to pull on and kind of go. I was wearing it at the Urbana Dog Park the other morning, and we got some good photographs, which I will put up here. I'll just put in a few photographs so you can see me wearing it. And if you're interested in this sweater or any of the other sweaters, you can pre-order that Facing North book by Albina. And I believe she's offering there's a discount right now for the pre-order, and then each of the patterns will be offered through Ravelry, I think, so that you could, if you're just interested in one or two of the sweater patterns, you could go for them that way. There are 4 sweater patterns in the book, and you can I'll put a link below in the show notes so that you can check out those patterns. There are also 4 accessories, so it's a book with 4 sweaters and 4 accessories, and that just seems like a lot, which is really, really cool. In this beautiful kind of chunky yarn. Now, I had never knit with chunky yarn before, and for those of you who have, this won't be new to you, but the stitches it's really kind of cool looking. This was a singles yarn, and so I'll see how it wears, but I do love the kind of stitch definition of it, and I think that it showed up the lace in the collar really, really beautifully. Now, as always, I modified things, and this was in collaboration with Albina, so the Fisherman's Muse the original Fisherman's Muse that you might have seen on Instagram had a kind of higher collar. So it had more stockinette rows between the edge of the sweater and where the lace started. And Albina and I just had a little chat about it, and she said, could you do a version where the collar is a little bit lower and the lace starts almost immediately? And so that's what I did here. So if you're interested in this pattern, but you'd like to have this neckline as opposed to the taller neckline that you might see in some of the other shots, that's the only modification that we did, and I posted about it on the project page in Ravelry, so if you have any questions about that, Albina could help you. I'd be happy to help you, and there you have it. So that is Fisherman's Muse by Albina McLaughlin of LB Handknits, and it is for the Facing North collection, which is coming out really soon. I believe it's coming out at the end of October. And I will keep you posted because I'm doing that other test knit for her, so you'll see yet another sweater from that collection before the collection comes out. So let's move on to one other finished object, and this is Vary the Gate by Casapinka, and it's knit in Purl Ply's Swanky Elephant. Now you will remember that this Purl Ply, I was talking to you about them last episode. They're a fairly new indie dyer outfit, Mel and Britt, and they sent me some yarn to try out and to give away to you guys. I immediately cast on Vary the Gate with Swanky Elephant because I think it is quite the gorgeous yarn, and I promised that I would be wearing these with kind of like my boring academic attire, so I might just teach like this with my shirt on and this beautiful kind of scarf as an accent. I quite like it, right? This is just a single skein of their Purl Ply singles, and their singles, single merino is 100% merino superwash, and it's 400 meters or 437 yards for 100 grams. So it looks like this, you know, like in a skein, regular one old skein, different color, yes. And this, I'll show you up close, is the way the fabric comes out. Now, Vary the Gate is a pattern by Casapinka that I love, and I've knit some of Casapinka's patterns before. She's kind of, her specialty is working with variegated yarns and trying to bring out the best in them so that you avoid color pooling and you avoid, you know, just you kind of like, you use the variegation to your advantage. And so in this pattern, she's using slip stitches, and the slip stitches produce this really cool, almost like woven-like effect in the fabric. So this is a triangular scarf, which begins all the way down here in this corner with just a few stitches, and then you're knitting up this way so that the top, at the end, you're knitting this long row at the top, right? And so the knitting is going, right now it would be going vertically, right? But you can see that the woven kind of slip stitches make it look like it's going sideways, which I think is just a really cool feature of those slip stitches. And I showed you the back last time. It looks very pearly and kind of quite warm and woolly. One modification that I made, as always, at the end of the shawl, Casapinka calls for 3 rows of garter stitch up at the top here, and then a bind off. And I just, you know, I'm not a big fan of like the garter stitch on the edge of this because I thought the woven pattern of this is just so beautiful, and I wanted to kind of like maintain that and kind of draw your eye to it and make you think about that rather than the garter edge. So I just took a page from Albina's book. She loves I-cord on a lot of her patterns, and so I've been doing a lot of I-cord for her when I do samples and tests. And so I just did an applied I-cord. So I cast on, I turned it to the wrong side. I cast on an extra 3 stitches, backward loop cast on, just really simple, and then worked the I-cord along this edge where all the live stitches were. And I think it just produces a really nice, clean, finished effect on the top of that shawl. And so the shawl doesn't have really any edges that you would even notice because of that I-cord. Now on the back, the reason I worked it on the wrong side as opposed to the right side, and you can see this is the wrong side of the work. And you can see what the I-cord does. It produces these 2 little knit stitches going all along the wrong side of the work there. I think you can see it. Come on, camera. There you go. So if I had cast on the extra stitches and worked the I-cord across the front, the right side of the work, I would have had those 2 knit stitches sitting on the front. Instead, I have just this one little knit stitch sitting along the front, creating what I think is a nice mirror to these other slip stitch kind of purly pattern that goes across this way. So that was my modification. I love this shawl pattern. I want to knit like 10 more of them, and I think every time I get on a plane or in a car ride, I will have one of these to cast on, because I think Vary the Gate is right up there with Linus as one of my favorite triangular shawl patterns now. And I love the Purl Ply yarn. It's soft, it's really beautiful, the colors kind of blended nicely together. I think it's just one of those shawls that's like super comfortable and soft because it's all merino, and the singles make it extra soft. And then the colorway just blends right together when you do this kind of variegated slip stitch pattern. Perfect, right? So thank you, Mel and Britt, for sending along some beautiful yarn to try out. I absolutely love the way that it turned out. And now my mannequin has like a kind of weird tankini going on right now, but I think that's okay. Let me tell you who are the winners of the Purl Ply giveaway from last episode. So oftentimes when I do one of these giveaways, I'll end up announcing the winner on Ravelry and on YouTube in the comments, because sometimes I don't always podcast right when the contest closes, but this is one of those fortunate times when I'm podcasting exactly when the contest is closing, so or is closed. So I had 2 extra skeins of the beautiful Romantic Getaway colorway to give away from Purl Ply, and the 2 winners drawn by random number generator are Joy, who said that her favorite colorway of Purl Ply was the violent pink. She said, I love the name and the deep color for what they call a non-Barbie pink. As for bases, she said she enjoys worsted and heavier, lots of fingering and sock choices out there for shawls, socks, and lighter sweaters, but I'd love a thick, bulky sweater made of these beautiful colors. So that was a cool kind of response, and all of the responses were really interesting. Any indie dyers out there, in addition to Purl Ply, there are people who want bases. You know, there are bases that people want, and you can find out more about them in the comments on the YouTube from last episode or on the Ravelry thread. Lots of good stuff there. The other winner is Kitten Whiplash on Ravelry. And Kitten Whiplash, I don't know your name. I'm sorry about that. But both of you can email me so that I can send you your prize in the mail. Kitten Whiplash said, there are so many calling out to me that I had to let my inner child pick. She chose Message in a Bottle. She said Message in a Bottle won the eeny, meeny, miny, mo when she was trying to pick her favorite colorway. So congratulations to both Joy and Kitten Whiplash on winning these 2 skeins of Purl Ply in the Romantic Getaway colorway. I hope you enjoy them very, very much. I absolutely love this colorway, the swanky elephant, the hologram, which I have here. So many beautiful things to choose from over on that Purl Ply website. So hit them up, support them, support the indie dyers out there in the world, and I'll have more giveaways for you very, very soon, actually. Some pretty cool yarn ones and some others, so stay tuned for those. So in the last segment of the podcast, I wanted to talk about knitting, how this all works, kind of give you a behind the scenes of the podcast a little bit. I often get questions like, how do you knit so much? How do you manage to like have a day job and do all this podcasting and knitting? And I thought I'd pull back the veil a little bit and talk to you guys about how it gets done. The first thing you need to know about me is that if I could, I would be knitting 24 hours a day, like in my sleep, while walking, while eating, while doing everything. It's just like, it's my love, it's my addiction, it's my thing that I just want to do with my hands and my brain, like all the time. So not everybody's like that. Not everybody likes to knit all the time. They just like to knit some of the time, and that's absolutely fine. It's just maybe a little difference or something that you need to know about me. The other thing I'd say is that it's definitely a balancing act, and there are times in my life when I'm working on sample knits or test knits where I have to say no to other things, or I can't quite be as present as I want to be. And I've tried to minimize that because it can be somewhat of a distraction, so I only take on as many sample or test knits as I think I can actually do and accomplish the rest of my life and be present for my partner and my son and family and all that. But I do love to knit, and I do it every day. Sometimes I'll be up early in the morning. If I can't sleep, I will knit. If there's a lunch break or a meeting where I'm just sitting there at work listening to other people give informational items, I will knit. I knit every night religiously for at least 2 hours, probably 3 hours a night, as my family's kind of sitting around unwinding from the day. Everybody in my family has stuff to do. So my son is often at soccer practice, my husband is working on the bus or working on his own videos. So everybody's very engaged in the evening. My son has homework, he reads. Every once in a while we'll watch a TV show together or a movie, and that's all prime knitting time. So I knit at least 2 or 3 hours a day at night if I can't sneak it in any other time. If I have weekends where everyone's completely occupied, I will knit as much as possible. At the soccer games I will knit, in the car on the way to the soccer games I will knit. So yeah, that's me. And I'm very unashamed about just knitting all the time when I can. Now, I will say, that it's not... I have a day job, which is to be a professor, and so I teach. I have research. I told you guys I have this Germany talk I'm giving. There's committee work. There's always something going on, and that has to take a certain kind of priority because it is my day job. It's what I get paid to do. But my husband and I have often talked about our other work. He works on, he's Meta Spencer on YouTube, and he's been working on a prison bus and doing all kinds of maker builder videos and things like that. And we often talk about, this kind of work that we do on the side that some people might call a hobby, and other people might just say, well, it's another part-time job. And I think we both treat it that way because we take what we do really seriously and we love what we do. And we want it to be good and fun and, thoughtful and interesting. So we're often both just, when we're not working on our day jobs, we're working on these jobs and we treat them very seriously, as much like a job as you can for something that you don't get paid for. And I guess the third thing I'd say is that I love to learn. It's like, that's probably why I'm a professor. It's probably why I love to teach. And so for me, this whole, picking up knitting again in 2012, learning about spinning starting in 2015, it's just been a fast track to a whole new subject area for me. Not only textile arts, not only knitting, not only spinning, but all the different stitches, learning about the publishing industry, learning about how the festivals work, trying to get an understanding of how producers work, how sheep are raised, there's so much to learn. And so I think I've been treating the last 7 or 8 years like a master's program in textiles, trying to learn as much as possible, try out as much as possible, you know, put my hands in every pot I possibly can. I've tried dyeing, I've tried festivals, I've tried knitting, spinning, now I'm making my own yarn. And so to me, it's just a huge opportunity for like a learning experience, and it keeps me kind of like feeling young and alive and happy, and like I'm doing something new with my life every day. And so that's how I make time for it, because I have to. It's something that I feel really passionate about, and something that I just absolutely can't imagine a day without. I sort of wonder, like I look back at my life before 2012 and I think, what was I doing with all my free time? And I know what I was doing. My son was very young, and he was in his kind of like early elementary school days, his toddler days, his baby days. That took up a lot of time. And before he was born, I was a cross stitcher, and did a lot of other kinds of making, but I cross stitched for many years. And I think my eyes just got too old for that, and the idea of having all the little yarns out and all the little fiddly bits out when I had a baby around was just too much. So I gave up on the cross stitching, and once Zach was old enough, that's when I took up knitting. So, and I found knitting to be a much more portable, much more kind of easygoing set of making practices than cross stitch, though I still love cross stitch and admire it very, very much. So that's how I get it done. Like, and the question is not necessarily how do you knit faster. I don't think it's more like how do you knit consistently? How do you keep yourself occupied and excited about knitting so that you want to do it as much as possible every day, or as much as you want to do it every day, right? Fresh projects, fresh ideas, new learning experiences, all of that kind of stuff can help you get more done. So that, you know, even this podcast is a great reason to get things done. So it gives me a little bit of a deadline every couple weeks to finish projects. I've taken on test and sample knits that give me a few deadlines to finish projects and push me in directions that I might not have gone otherwise. I've done a lot of test knits and sample knits for things that I think are beautiful, but that they're in colors that I might not normally knit in, or there's a new technique there that I haven't tried. So those also push me in different directions, and they're kind of fun to do. So that's how I get so much done, I guess. It's a real passion for me. It's something that I feel like I just need and want to do every day. And that's not for everybody, but that's my story. And, you know, I don't, like I said about the competition with the Sheep and Wool Festival, I don't think of this all as a competition, like who can knit more and who can knit better and who can create better. Because I think creation, and that's a personal thing. It's about imagination, it's about having an outlet, it's about meditation, it's about so many different things for so many people. And I'd hate for it to become just a competition among like who can knit faster, who can knit better. We're all learning, and it's fun to learn. It's so much fun to see your projects on the Ravelry thread, to hear from you, to hear questions from you. And I've gotten a lot of questions about techniques, so I plan to put up some more technique videos soon. Yeah, so that's me. And now I'll step off my my wee soapbox. I was kind of figuring that those of you who are staying till the end of the podcast to listen to all this probably actually might care and might be curious about my philosophy, so there you have it. All right. It was fun to hang out with you guys. I'll insert some video about the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Sheep to Shawl Festival special competition thing in here at the end, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Take care. Happy knitting.
Preparation sign, weekly sign. I know, our team sign. I'll take care of it after. I feel like I'm spinning in the grease. Right? Hello, Champagne Urbana. Hi. I love my French toast. It's always time. You're retired. Yeah, right.
The 3 legs, trying to get the right size.
Everybody breathe.
Yeah, I can tell.
Smile.
Does anybody have the comb that,
Maybe your, what comb do you need?
the comb that Kathy had?
Kathy? Here's the comb.
Never mind. Yes.
Sorry, I'm in your area.
Just out of curiosity, when we first off. I'm going to need a fringe twister in a minute.
Got it.